Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. I just realized I don't seem to have night shot on my camera right now, so I guess it'll just be like this, but hey, you got the audio, so should be all good. The American League beat the National League today in the All-Star game 3-2. And I was kind of wanting the National League to win just because they haven't in so long. I don't prefer either league above the other. I mean, the Giants are in the National League, but hey, so are the Dodgers. But I was just thinking if the National League could snap their big losing streak, we would all think that was pretty cool, right? And it is interesting. I was recently reading about a study that Baseball Prospectus did in 2006 on the relative strength of the two leagues in the game. It was written down in the book Baseball Behind the Numbers. It's written by some people from the Baseball Prospectus evaluation team. And they looked at the National and American Leagues in 2006. And I won't get into all the details right now. But what their study, at least according to them, what it seemed to conclude was that the American League was both harder to hit in and harder to pitch in that year, and therefore it was the league of overall tougher competition. Like, you know what we're saying, it's not that it swings one way on hitting or pitching, it's just that, I mean, almost any major league is going to be, that the major leagues as a whole, they're going to be tougher competition than any minor league division of teams. And the National and American League are always going to be closer to each other than that kind of a difference. But anyway, Baseball Prospectus was saying the 2006 American League was tougher than the National League that year. Of course, a lot would have changed since then, but now we've had, I think this would be the 8th year that the All-Star Game has been held, that the American League's won, so I'm not sure what's going on right here. Anyway, I want to get back to the question that I introduced this morning, which is about the Giants. Should they go after Juan Soto? Who should they go after at the trade deadline? I won't be answering it tonight. That's going to take a bit more discussion first. But here's just a related question. Could the Giants pick up Juan Soto and maybe one other pretty good guy at the trade deadline? Maybe that's all they get. They get Juan Soto and they get one other guy. Well, that all depends on what these extra players would cost and what the Giants can spend out of their organization, their farm system, on them. They could get Juan Soto and two other guys if they wanted to trade the players extensively enough to do so. And the question you got to ask is, the Giants farm system, how many of these guys are really going to benefit the Giants in the upcoming years? Because they've had disappointments. I would say that a pitcher like Sean Anderson, who came up for them in 2019, was unfortunately pretty much disappointing. I mean, I don't think he really provided value above replacement level. Then the other pitcher that started out good but ultimately disappointed was Derek Rodriguez. Although he never showed up on a top prospects list, so it's a little bit different for him. I don't think he would have been any extreme value by way of a trade deadline, although I suppose he could have been a trade chip. And then you've got the offense. Joey Bart was supposed to be, and we're going to get to the talk about his natural power in a moment. It's just, Bart was supposed to be a really, really good player. The Giants drafted him in 2018. They paid him between $7 and $8 million. Maybe it was just $7 million. But right now, Bart, at least as of right now, he's not that really good player. He's about 25, I think. Things could still change, but he's not what I heard he was going to be at the time he was drafted, just as far as of right now. Joey Bart has just not transformed into that. And the Giants they're going to have other examples that really go both ways. And Logan Webb definitely did, at least so far, transform into a good pitcher for the Giants. So that is a success story. Mike Yastrzemski came up not even as a prospect. He came up, he became a great player. Then Steven Duggar, it was a bit of back and forth with him. He had good hits and he had not so good times. So I would say with Duggar, we're grateful for the contribution that he did make to the team. But we also realize that if the Giants saw benefit in trading him, which they did this year, they traded him to the Rangers, then we'll probably trust their judgment. Anyway, that's kind of the backbone of all this information. Can we trust these prospects to benefit the Giants? Now I'll say, while we're trying to answer this question, there's one word that goes into all the talk about whether you're talking about a draft, whether you're talking about just the content of a team's farm system, or whether you're talking about the job of a sports agent at a lot of times. These things will have one common word that you'll often use when talking about players in all of these categories, and it is not my favorite word. It's the word talent. Now, I understand that usually we know what we mean when we say it, but the word talent really gives me the impression that what you're looking for is something that someone was born with. I mean, I would have to look it up in the dictionary to really get it right, but doesn't that sound like you're saying, okay, in somebody's DNA naturally to play baseball? And that's not really how the game works, because you see players struggle because sometimes it's just because they don't take the approach that they really should, and so what I would say that the core of the game of baseball is skill. I would prefer to use the word skill, because talent that is not executed goes nowhere. So I'm not looking at someone having the natural ability to play the game of baseball, but again, I said I understand we know what we mean when we use that term, and I think when people say it, they're just talking about good performance, like someone has a lot of runs they can bring at the plate, stored up in the baseball they can play. It's important though to remember the distinction and allow for the possibility that your prospects could underperform in the majors, and just be able to evaluate how things are just from a standpoint of what is the player really doing for the team. And that doesn't mean prospects who are struggling don't have time to develop. That has happened. It does happen. I think I would say the stories of that happening are like once someone struggled kind of after getting to the majors. You could say maybe Kyle Tucker for the Astros. That could be his story. Certainly Justin Turner for the Dodgers. He came up with the Mets. He started out by struggling, so that's going to happen. But let's know what we mean when we talk about talent. We mean, I think we kind of mean skill, you know. I just wonder when someone says, this is the most talented player in all of baseball. Haven't you heard that term? I wonder sometimes when I hear that, what do they mean? Do they mean this is the best player in all of baseball? And it could mean they just have an exceptionally, for a pitcher, an exceptionally wide variety of pitches and locations they could throw them to, or for a hitter, an exceptionally wide variety of ways they could swing. I understand that, but all the same, let's just know what we mean. The Giants organization, what we're seeing, I mean, we want to see all that the players on this farm system, well, that's the other word that's kind of weird, farm system. I mean, I guess it's I guess it's just a production term. You're a dairy farmer or wheat farmer or a baseball player farmer. I guess it's about production. Anyway, you look at a team's farm system. Now we're going to go back to the thing with Joey Bart, and I'm going to talk about how they said he had natural power. Is that transforming? And that really meant that without swinging really hard, without hitting with an uppercut or specifically for power, the projection was that he could still go by hitting for average with a season of over 20 home runs. Now, is that natural power showing for Bart right now? Well, evidently not, and it still could later on. So, but at least for right now, whatever talent it was that he had, the skill has to come. I don't want to make up terms to fit what I'm talking about, but I think that one might be a pretty good one. So the Giants, I would say they just really try to evaluate their farm system and be honest about, because if somebody's, I was talking about stronger and weaker leagues a little earlier, if somebody, like say a hitter in the minors, has had a lot of time of struggling at the minor league levels, then you could probably infer in most cases that, okay, if he's not performing well in the minors, what does that indicate about going to a stronger league, which is MLB? And it's not just all mediocre performance. If it was inconsistent from even some of the star prospects, and you looked at their stretches, different time intervals, and it was inconsistent in the minors, that would lead me to question how they're going to perform in the big leagues. Sometimes, I would say sometimes pretty good in the minors could still lead you to question. Even sometimes really good in the minors doesn't translate into the majors. All of that being said, the Giants are going to want to keep some of this, we'll call it talent, you know what I mean when I say that, in their farm system, because it has produced players for the Giants. Brandon Crawford, I think he was drafted by the Giants, came up with the Giants. Say the same thing for Buster Posey. Just needs to do the same thing now in the upcoming years. But like I said this morning, we are focused on 2022 right now. So for 2022, what would it be wise to spend? And our question for tonight is, could they pick up Juan Soto as well as maybe one other guy? I would say for the payroll, they could afford to pay Soto, at least that's my best guess. And I'm gonna have to hear a bit more about what the Giants are being offered, and that's gonna, what the Dodgers would offer for any player they might compete with the Giants to get. That's gonna have bearing on who's likely to get it. I mean, it could just come down to a bidding thing here. The Giants, if they still want to have a chance at landing Juan Soto, the decision-making factor could just be the bid. Like, if we have to go how high do they have to go on him? But one thing is certain, the Giants roster can't stay the way it is. They do need foreign aid at the trade deadline, and it's got to happen. And it's got to be significant, too. Not like in 2019 when they picked up Scooter Gennett from the Reds. There was no reason anyway, I don't think, to think that he would be that great based on his earlier statistics, and he wasn't. They placed him on waivers. Last year, it was a lot better. I mean, better than getting Gennett, they got Chris Bryant. He did disappoint a little bit. I mean, he still performed above average. He would have given them runs above replacement, and especially when he first came, he did a lot of good for the Giants, but I think they can do even better than Bryant this year. It might be kind of luck, you look at a player and he's good, and you got to have better luck with him. That would be a good thing. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to Giants Baseball 101 if you haven't. Also, you can email me, GabrielVaughn89@gmail.com. I've got to end. I don't think I can do videos over 15 minutes with the way my channel is set up right now. I'll see you next time.